Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqanda.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Our next conversation is with Placide Nkubito, my brother. I love this man so much. Placide is an accomplished communications officer at the Peaceful Heart Network in East Africa. With a passion for creating peace, a peaceful society, he pioneered the training of trainers on stress and trauma relief at the network. As a trainer himself, Placide imparts communication and stress management skills to individuals and organizations, enabling them to cope with the challenges of stress and trauma. His contributions have been instrumental in promoting mental wellness, particularly in prison communities, refugees, for the survivors of genocide, healthcare providers, and social service providers. One of the images that we're going to show you after we get a chance to talk to Placide is Placide actually leading 7,000 inmates in a tapping training. It is something that is absolutely breathtaking to see here because he is in Africa, and we wanted to make sure that we had a chance for him in East Africa to have good internet connection. Here's a conversation I recorded with Placide about a week and a half ago. So, since we chatted last year,
Mm.
what are some of the experiences you've had doing the work that you have been doing? What does that look like for you?
Um, yeah, it looks amazing, like having your gene coming to Rwanda and learn and seeing the whole work that we've been doing and the places that we traveled together, and also coming to United States in the conference that we had in Manhattan. It gave me like another big perspective that in Rwanda we are not the only one people that are facing that trauma is something that is becoming the worldwide,
Mhm.
so big, and it's not only me or a few community of people here that are dealing with, but there are such a big number of people that are behind and are looking for the solutions to heal and also to bring the positive impact. And also, I learned a lot being with you, being with the Cindy, and also being exposed to the information, the people that you are keeping, bringing in. And when we get the resources and I learn, and it makes me grow, and I have more to share than I used to be.
And so what are some of those specific lessons? What are some of those specific things that you have learned that's just kind of impacting you and impacting the work that you're doing there in East Africa?
So the cross culture thing, how people deal with it, or when for example, when I was in the United States, in New York, so I tried to speak to people around within the community, the new places that were I was like for the first time. I started comparing. Okay, even if people have everything, but they are still get, if I say, they're traumatized, even if
Mhm.
there is numbers of resources and everything, but the trauma, it doesn't consider you because you're rich is going to tolerate you because you have the everything. It's also I learned that no matter the social class that we are come from, it's our responsibility to take care of our mental health being. And then which is also take the stories back to Rwanda and also to some of the other places, and I share, guys, there is a lot of things that we can do together with the Westerns and also as Africans. There is something that they can learn from us. The team that I met, some of the herbalists, and then how people use the herbals to treat, and from the every perspective of life that you're in, you can bring in the well-being of the mental health, or the way you can deal with the stress and trauma. It's also showed me the farmers, the people from different fields, they came into the conference. It's also learned the approach, how I also can approach people from within different fields.
And so when you are trying to introduce tools and have conversations like this, what's a good starting point? How do you engage with people to start those conversations?
It's been with the person, but my favorite part is I just observe and then I listen. Then from the conversation, that when we are talking, I can jump in from there. But I build like a kind of depend the amount of time that I have, that is based on the very short relationship, what I can call like temporary relationship within this person, because I have something maybe I want to share. Like for example, yesterday, one of the local community leader, she was moving around, and then she saw me. She said, "Hey, are you registered in this community?" Because she saw me as a new person. Yeah, I said I
Mhm.
am. I've been even working in the prison that is around. So then what do you do? I said that I will work on trauma and stress management. And she said, I think I'm traumatized. That's what she said. So I say, okay, come home. And then because she's arranging the activity of commemoration here in Rwanda that we are going to have on 14th, especially in this community. Okay, I have even some t-shirt at home that you can use, that will help you to identify. Then from there, I introduce to the pattern. So it depends, but for me, it's based on yeah. I mean, listen and also find the way to bring what I want to share with.
And I think what you're saying there is really, really important, because oftentimes when we have something that we think is good and useful to share, we just want to share it.
Mm,
It's like, there's a problem, I want to
yeah,
go share this thing.
yeah,
And by recognizing the fact that the place that we need to start is a place of listening, is
mm,
something that's really, really good and useful, so that
mm,
we're, understanding the person that's on the other side. They're not just someone
yeah,
who is here to receive our information. They're a
mm,
person. They're human. They're someone who has experiences, and more than likely, they're only going to
yeah.
be interested in something that we have to share if it connects with where they are in that particular process.
And also, what I have seen, uh, I think it's gonna be 1 year when I started, communicating and also doing things together, is what I mean, where our eyes cannot see and also our feet cannot reach. The people who have been behind of this work, I have seen reaching there. I mean, few months I've been doing like what I can call follow up. I go visit the groups that you guys visited, even the some that were born after, and then when you hear their testimonies, and then there are people who just learn how to tap and just go home. And then when I go visit them into their communities and ask them, how are you guys doing? How is it? What is the results? So how are you coping with the situation in your community? And then when they share the testimonies, I get so shocked. Like the one say, okay, do you know how this our family were having like issues of relationship connecting and socializations, and they tell us, okay, this is what is happening. We are having a good relationship with my parent. Those are the examples that I got. There is this friend, he's also among of the youth group that I created just not far from home. He told me that his wife was, she was pregnant, and then she got the labor when she was about to deliver, and in the night she was screaming a lot. And then in the village it's so hard to get the ambulance to drive you to the hospital. and then her first pregnancy, and then she was screaming and screaming, and the guy, he came to think about, okay, let me just try to do some tapping on her, and I see if she can cool down. For me, that was a new experience. And then when he started tapping on her, then the lady, she was cooling down and cooling down, and then she slept, she fell asleep. So this one is more unimaginable. I don't even have ways to explain. But when you find it, okay, the training of 2 hours or 3 hours that I spend with them, it has helped the guy to save his wife, and to connect, and also to think how the next morning they could go to the hospital. So, and so many stories that I keep hearing, that it gives me some more encouragement.
And so when you do that in your 2-hour training, are you basically
Mm.
just teaching them the basic TTT protocol and that's it?
Yeah, I teach them, of course, how to tap, and we do evening, and also I tell them my personal journey of healing, and also I give them the testimonies from the different places that we acquired. We watch some videos on the tapping, and also I can play one of the video of one of the role models that we have in this word of healing, and then from there, then we go back home. So it
And I
depends also
yeah.
of the nature of the group. Yeah.
And so I think one thing that's really important to highlight because,
Mm,
I am someone who likes really sophisticated tools and likes to have all of these processes
mm,
and it's really easy. It's really lovely to hear that giving a very simple approach is something that is super, super effective. That we don't have to add all of the complicated approaches, that just basically teaching them here's a really simple wordless way to tap that makes it easy for them to engage with it in that particular way. So they use it on their
mm.
own. Um, what sort of when you're giving these sorts of instructions, how do you encourage, how do you instruct people to use it in their own lives, in their own homes? Because it's one thing, like when there is a leader in front of the group and leading someone through the
Mm.
process, like how do you guide them into doing that on their own?
Abdul, the first step, we do much practice until, if I say, there is this word we used to use in Christianity long time ago. He said, uh, play it until it happen, like
Mhm.
tap until you feel something, like we make sure that we do enough practice, that in your nervous system, in your body, you are going to feel something. And then from there, I say, okay, like if most of the what they get surprised, they say, oh, this is how calm I really feel. I'm feeling so much calm. I had the headache. I was not concentrating. Now I feel, or some they will tell you different, feedback. And then from there, I just advise them, please, before you go to bed, do it in the evening. When you wake up in the morning, also, if you remember before you go your prayers, since in Rwanda, like 90% of people are Christians, and they do mostly the morning prayers. So you can also do it. Or when you feel tired, or when you're not feeling well, because we are somehow familiar with what's some time going on, or some they are not even know. I mean, for example, I used to give is this one. Have you been ever waking up in the morning and you feel so sad? We call it, deep, deep sad, and you don't know. So what you can do, just stop. Or you feel like you don't want even to wake up in the morning. It's normal. Just do it. So that's one. I just helps to realize to feel your body first, and then do something about it. Mostly the result will come very negatively. The second is encouraging the importance of it. I emphasize a lot. So if you do this kind of, not promising, just kind of advice, but shows the positive side of it. And
And
then
so I
we,
think
we practice.
Yeah, so I think that a couple of things in there that I think are really helpful for all of us who are helpers to hear is number one, practice, practice, practice. Not just teach
So
someone
yes.
and have them go, I got
Mm,
it, but doing lots
mm,
and lots and lots of repetition,
mm,
because I think it's really easy for me to understand something without fully
mm,
embracing it. And that
yeah,
repetition is good. The other thing that I love in what you're saying is just giving really simple, direct instructions on
mm,
this is how you use it daily. Add it at the
yeah,
beginning of the day, add it at the end of the day, add it your purse. You're anchoring, you're attaching it to something they're already doing,
mm,
or giving really clear examples. When you feel this, do this. And
yeah,
I think, I know as a student, I am likely to nod my head and say, understand, even when I only kind of understand, because I
mm,
want to be accepted. And so, it can feel like what you're doing is over explaining something. But
mm,
instead, what you're doing is you're making sure that people have a deep understanding that's really, really useful.
yeah. And also, if I say, I just come and be with them just as I am. Also, tell them the challenges that I am not, super anti-stress person. I also get affected. I share with them, and also get so much be open. And for me, there are two people who shared with me, and it was really touching. Is one of the lady. She was the one of the group women. She told us she had a friend who was going to commit the suicide, and then she helped with the tapping. Those groups, they don't even know how to read. That
Mhm.
woman gave her feedback, and she was like, "Okay, thank you so much for saving my life." And they said, "Hey, do you know when the other day when I came to see you, I was coming to tell you goodbye, and I was about to go to commit suicide because he had a very toxic relationship that was very violent." And then the woman, she told her that there is something we learn from Placide, my name, that and this is we always print this small material that has a winky and it shows the part that you should tap. And then he said that we can do. They even call it like a sport exercise. That if I
Mhm.
translate it very well, he said, okay, we did this and this and this together, and then they were tapping together, and then the lady, she fell asleep from her house. In the next day, she went back home, and then she was asking, "What did you do to me?" I feel like those old thoughts are gone. That was was one of the testimony. And the other one, the next group that I visited, I found it the same. I was like, okay, this is even beyond the energy that you can put in, because it's. I mean, I know, like, having suicide thoughts, and to see how needy people are really struggling, and then with this exercise that you can teach even less than 5 minutes, and how it is bringing the change, for me, it affects me mostly. Like, at, emotionally, I get so much overwhelmed about that.
And so inside of all of that, one of the things that
Mm,
you had mentioned as we were going back and forth getting ready for this was, talking about how childhood trauma shows up and impacts us as adults.
mm.
So in the communities that you're serving in your own life, how do you see that? What's the outcome and the consequence for the adults for things that have happened to them in the very distant past when they were children?
S- it's if I say, like, is if I say it's not easy, but it's not even hard, because one of the gifts that I have, I I have like a spirit of discernment, and also, through the conversation and how people get so much easily, opening up to me. And also, if I say, even based on the statistics that comes out from the research, they say, between age of 14 and 25 in Rwanda, like, where three people are, at least one has, trauma. And also, after the genocide, when now we are like a 30 years of commemoration, where now those who are very young now, they have grown up, and then also people started even voicing out and talk about it, even if we didn't know what to do about that. And also the services are growing in offering those kind of services of helping people who are traumatized. But it's still low. If I say in Rwanda, we have more than 15 psychiatrists in the whole country. We have only four hospitals can offer that service, but also people get recommended. They can hear the calls and the friends tell friends, and then that's how I got to know them. And also, since I'm a people person, sometimes I go to visit. If I know this is a survivor of the genocide, I'll go and talk. If I know this is maybe they are perpetrators of the genocide, there is a village of reconciliation. Sometimes I work with the local community leaders. They can also tell, we think that person has a problem. And also the level of alcoholism and the drug abuse. And then from there, I got to understand that that person is dealing with something.
And so, as someone who is going in and helping folks in this way, what are some of the biggest challenges you have as a facilitator and a teacher as you're trying to work in these communities?
Yeah, the most challenge that I have is after when I go there, then I come back, and then there are some issues that you see that even if it needs like a therapy or I need somebody to be with, but they have other big challenges that I know I can reach there, but sometimes I feel like I can do something. Like I'm gonna give you an example of this lady. She's a genocide survivor. I went to visit her in her home because I was recommended by a friend. So when I reached there, she didn't even have. I sent you a picture, the one with the selfie. She lives in the house that the roof is leaking, and it was raining. I was sitting in the sitting room, and there is no food in the house. She has a kid who is blind, and then when you see like there are some needs that I need also to facilitate him in the healing process, and I know I can't do anything about it. It's also that's it. Also, working alone as a person going there, like most of the time I'm with myself. Sometimes I need to process that when I come home. So I'm happy that I have a peaceful heart network that sometimes we can talk about it. But reaching home and also you need to process. That's one of the challenges that I also face, and also uh, opening up to some of the places. Say, okay, I'm traumatized, but I know that I'm traumatized. Some people can be rude if I say say and then burst, and sometimes I don't know even how really doing the best to to put him down, and also working with the other people who are not really familiar. Like during this commemoration, I'm going to give you an example. We were gathered somewhere because with the way we do commemoration, the people from within the community, they come and they share out the testimony of what they went through during the genocide. And some people get re-traumatized. So and then they started screaming and screaming a lot. So when they were taking them from the crowd to the place that was prepared to receive them, to calm them down, when I entered in some of the room, some women were playing, saying, "Oh, in the name of Jesus," like a chasing, thinking that a person being re-traumatized is demon possessed, which is not
Right.
true. So that also hurts me most because I went to that lady. I said, "Please, can you give me this lady that I can be with sometimes?" I took her from that room. We went in the safe room. Then I was doing some evening, and after like 10 minutes, she fell asleep into my hands. Then I put on the mattress. Then I covered. like meeting people, because we don't have like this huge information about it, and then people can misunderstood it. So it's also
Yep.
one of the things that I encounter within being in the community.
So talk to me specifically. You mentioned that, debriefing and processing after the fact. What does that process look like for you afterwards to make sure that you're staying healthy after dealing with something so heavy like that?
Yeah, it's so. I mean, that. I mean, since if I say I've been also affected in the way when listening to those
Yep.
stories and the kind of things, and living with myself in the house. So I developed the new routine, like waking up very early in the morning and go for running and jogging. Then I come back home and do some tapping and also short of meditation. It's also something that has helped me to move forward. But before, I was like, wow, this is because I also say I think I told one of my colleagues that after 30 years is now we are more understanding the heavy and the impact, and also seeing the progress and the result of the impact of the genocide that had on our community, especially in Rwanda. The either to those who are outside and those who came in, and also those who are in the country during the genocide. So it also, the more I got to understand more, the more I fully find more grounded to say, okay, we still have a lot of things to do about it. Even that's when the most of the generation are growing now, are getting married. That's when we are talking about the, the transgeneration trauma, where the young people now are more exposed, and we see them being um, abusing the drugs, and it, it makes me to be aware and to see more than what I used to see.
And one of the things I love what you're talking about inside of that is creating a morning routine to make sure that you are physically and emotionally healthy. What you're doing is you're doing
Mm,
something ahead of time proactively, and you're not
mm,
just responding when it is hard.
yeah,
It's not just,
yeah,
I'm going to float along, and when it gets hard, I'm going to clean up the mess. It's,
mm,
I'm doing something regularly to make sure
yeah,
I'm as healthy as I can so that when I go
mm,
into these circumstances, I am more resilient to what is coming at me in those particular moments. And so in your
yeah. That's
process,
definitely.
yeah.
Mm.
And when you're processing after the fact with colleagues, what does that look like? Are you just talking it through? Are you tapping with each other? Are you asking for advice how to respond to the circumstance? Like, what does it look like after the fact when you're talking to folks to kind of take care of yourself afterwards?
So how does it look like?
Yeah. Like, are you, well, like, what's the conversation? Like, so let's say you've had a really, really hard session and you've done processing and you're going to reach out
Mm.
to a colleague to talk it through. What does that conversation look like? Are you just like sharing everything that happened? Are you like, what does that process look like for you?
Yeah. For example, like I may go to a place and maybe for coffee, and then I find a person, then we started talking. Sometime I don't even have someone to share with. So
Hmm.
what I do, I I can go home. I just have it in my mind, then I fall asleep, and then in the next day when what I love, I can go back to the place, then I go check to those people and I say, hey, how was it? Or I make a phone call to to somebody, and
Hmm.
then that I know that he knows really well what I'm doing. So it feels it feels so. If I say when is, I can feel like, okay, why should I really continue doing this, or I should even stop?
Hmm.
Because sometimes it feels like I mean, it's so heavy if I say.
And so, what do you do away from your work to fill yourself up and nourish yourself?
So mostly that what I said is going to that kind of routine and also
Mhm.
go to church on Sunday. Um, I have a book sometime that I read at home. I love watching comedy movies that are comedian that I can laugh, even if when actually that's what I do most when I'm in the bus traveling or in the car or, or taxi. I can watch comedy in my way. Then I get home when it also gives me so much relaxation.
And I like the fact that it's, you're just doing something you enjoy, and that's
Yeah.
nourishing for us to be able to do what's
Mm.
going on.
Yeah, also testimony gives me the reason to go back. Sometimes I feel, but
Yeah.
when I go back for the evaluation, then I hear those kind of, oh, somebody was going to commit suicide
Yeah.
and then they didn't. I feel so much, you know, my soul.
And so one of the things that I love from our experience is we, in marketing,
Mhm.
in the Western world, we use the word testimonial,
Yeah,
where you all use the word testimony, and they're very, very
yeah,
similar words, but
mhm,
like testimony certainly in the Western world carries a very religious connotation to it. I'm giving my testimony to the Lord,
mhm.
and I love and I love what, because for me, a
Yeah,
testimonial is talking about this is the thing that happened. A
yeah,
testimony is this is who I am today, and getting a
yeah.
chance to engage with not the thing that was lost, but who I
Mhm,
am now. Like, I think that's good
mhm,
for them to tell those stories. I can remember when we were in Uganda and we had to
mhm,
leave because we had to catch ferries and all of that sort of stuff. And the people in the community were sad because they didn't get to share all of their testimonies.
mhm,
Like they wanted to share how valuable it was to them. And they almost felt sad because they didn't get to tell all their stories because they wanted us to know how good it was. And so I love this idea of creating space for people to share that.
mhm.
Not just this is my struggle, but this is where I am again. And the regathering just to celebrate the change. I don't think, certainly not in the West, when we're teaching, it's like, did you learn how to do the thing? We're not
Yeah.
having the conversation about how are you different now? Let's hear those stories, because
Mm,
one, it becomes more alive in me when I'm able to talk about my experience. And two,
yeah.
like you're talking about, it becomes nourishing for the entire community because we get to hear those other things happening in the exact same way.
Yeah, I love it because it is like a corrective group and the energy and it motivates the other. Oh, say, okay, this one is sharing this in public, and maybe it also can work for me. And also, that is a way of spreading things, even if you don't have anything to use with the tapping. But you hear among of the group, you say, okay, when I learned this, I went to see my grandmother who was having these problems. Now this is what is happening. Like this boy was telling me when I learned this for me, because he's 19, and then he was saying, okay, I went to see my grandmother because they sold her land blindly because they were making her to sign the papers without knowing because she doesn't know how to read. And then when she realized the land was sold, she became like she was shocked and they became like crazy and nervous, how things can change. So during our evening, that's the guy who was telling me we were doing the tapping together, and she was able to sleep, and also the anger and the frustrations also goes away. And then they started the process of talking to the local leaders. Otherwise, she was getting mad. Those are the feedback that you
Mhm.
get from people being together. Okay, even if I'm not going to use it, but I know somebody who can need this. Not only learning for ourselves, also for our family members or our friends.
And that's one of the reasons why I love doing so much stuff in a group setting, is because the
Mm,
opportunity of the lessons that we get to learn from the other people and how they're using the
mm.
tools and what that transformation looks like. And so often we think about teaching, but getting a chance to follow up and hear those stories is really, really awesome.
Yeah, and also back to the word testimony, like in my language, we say it, obohamia, it means I witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I witness these things works for me. I was like this. Now this is what I was dealing with, but today I am like this.
And for those of us who want to share tapping, I really like the
Mm,
word witness, because in a legal setting, a witness
mm,
just tells what they know. You
yeah,
know, they're not trying to change someone else's mind. They're just sharing
yeah,
their experience. And so often when
mm,
we want to share a tool set, I'm like, I'm trying to convince you of something. But
mm,
in many cases, that can turn someone off, and it's so much more powerful just to bear witness, just to share,
mm,
this is what my experience was, and it gives other
mm,
people the opportunity to latch on to what is useful for them. So we're not trying to convince, we're just sharing our lived experience. And in a
mm,
lot of ways, I think that's a significantly more effective way for us to share our experience.
yeah, yeah. It is.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, Placide, as always, thank you very much for your time. I can't wait for you and I to be in the same space again so I can give you a big hug. I appreciate
Me
all the
too.
work that you
Thanks.
do. And thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.